everywhere. So,
Dang.
uh,
Where are you coming from?
South Carolina.
Is that where you're from?
Yeah, born and raised. So, yep. All right, hold on. Let
Dang.
me turn off this. Give me one more second. Let me turn off this TV. And
Yeah.
we get started. What about you? Where are you from?
I'm from here. I'm from here. So so I we drove a couple places over the break to kind of get out, but flying or anything like that, we've just been staying here.
Man, I've been in Houston for 14 years now, 13 years now, and I've never spent a Christmas here because I'm from South Carolina, so I always go home.
Hmm.
So it's never even been an option. I think my parents would have a conniption if I did not come.
Hmm.
So it's all good.
Yeah. Well, you're not missing much. I don't. The weather's just like any other day. It feels like.
Well, hey, trust me. After coming back from some of the cold that I just got back from, I'd take it any day of the week because I love 70-degree Decembers.
Well, it's funny. I actually just texted Byron this morning because he and I have been keeping in touch, and I had asked him, what are some questions that you want me to ask and stuff, and he had a whole list.
Oh,
So
really?
I'm gonna definitely take it from that because he's a inspirational guy, and
Yeah.
he's wanting to pick your brain about a lot of things. So I said, hey
Okay.
man, tune in, and I'll definitely ask him those questions
Perfect. Perfect.
because
Perfect.
yeah, I mean, he was excited to work for you, and I know, in person it's been a little bit weird, but
Yeah.
you haven't let him down as far as the hype surrounding
That's awesome.
working at a Jamie Downs school.
Hey
So
man, well I I don't know about hype, but I'm glad I haven't let him down. He's Byron's awesome. And we're working on a project right now that I'm really excited about, and even just getting an opportunity to collaborate with him more. This pandemic sucks, man. I just wish there I and Byron's just one example. But I know there's so many people on my campus that like embody and like came to Southside for like the right reasons. We're just really limited, and we've been limited. Let me say that, and I've also been limited in my own thinking in regards to like what's possible. But we got to change that, and so I'm excited. One of my mentality going into the new year is just how do we like the pandemic's going to be what it's going to be. But what do we need to do differently to really make some change happen? So I'm excited to lean into that in the new year.
yeah, I'd been getting several recommendations to have, principals on, and
Mhm.
always the recommendation was make sure you have a principal on who doesn't drink the Kool-Aid, because we don't want to have. And I was thinking, I was like, well, Yes Prep did start their own podcast.
Yeah. You know what? I saw that. I didn't
Yeah,
even, I didn't know that. I saw it.
yeah,
Like, that wasn't like news. Like, I was like, wait, what? They have a podcast? I haven't
yeah.
listened to it. Have you listened to it?
I've listened to a little bit of it,
Okay.
but I think it's, it was crazy. I'd been thinking about doing this for a while, and of course, the pandemic was like, oh, this is a great opportunity.
Right.
And like the week that I said, all right, let's go for it. The next day, Mark sent out that email saying, we're starting a podcast or whatever. So I was like, dang,
Wow.
my idea, you snooze, you lose. But then I
Hey,
listened to it
nah.
and I was like, it's a very different audience
Yeah.
with very different topics. So
Yeah.
I think this will still, reach a different side.
What I've learned is that there's an audience for everybody, man. And even and I'm sure you've seen me and my friends have started the podcast as well. And just pandemic bringing up all this time. I saw this thing Diddy post on Instagram the other day, and he's like, if 2020 didn't bring the hustle out of you, it's not in you. So I think that with all this idle time, this is good information and stuff people need to hear. And I think that Yes Prep has their audience, and I think that they're probably sharing out information that those people need to hear. But I think that there's also an audience that needs to understand the challenges and the realistic, you know, experience that happens when you're on the campus day to day. And I think what I've learned, just even in a lot of ed spaces, and I've been, popping on different podcasts, popping on different Instagram lives and things like that. And the need for content like this is so necessary. One, to help people sustain in the work, but then two, to really to paint a picture that most people who haven't, I think sometimes we live in our TFA, yes, prep, education bubbles. Most people have no real concept of what we're doing, particularly in the inner city, right? And it's so necessary. So I'm all about it, man. So good work. I've listened to a couple episodes, man. You're doing awesome. So I'm excited to be here today.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you coming on. So I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but you kind of talked about, being a school leader in this time, and kind of the, the support or lack of support, or, a lot of the disconnect. So has there, how do you kind of maintain your authentic leadership while still kind of pushing through and, bringing down directives to staff that, especially in this time, telling a staff member, they have to work in person, or, get tested or anything like that? How have you maintained your authentic leadership, which I know you pride yourself on,
Yeah.
with, the
So,
craziness that's been this year?
so I think one of the things that has to be true for any leader is you have to know your values. And for me, transparency is like a big value for me personally. And I think that when you're asking someone to commit to a job that honestly is putting their health at risk, putting their family's health at risk, um, you have to just be open and honest about the realities at play. And so I told myself when I walked into this school year that I was not gonna, sometimes when stuff gets difficult, we shy away from the conversation. We shy away from the questions. We don't even give people opportunity to ask questions or to push back. And for me, I said, this is going to suck, but I'm not going to shy away from these conversations. I'm going to lean in every time. And every time I want to just be like, look, I didn't make this decision. Look, this is not what I want to do. I just don't go there, because that's an excuse. And I'm a leader. And these people signed up to work with me. They signed up to come to my school, and ultimately I'm accountable to them. And so I haven't shied away from it. And I've just given people, what I will say about the organization that we work for. I don't know. Do you speak candidly about Yes Prep? Let me just say that before
Oh, of course.
Okay. So, yeah. So, we work at Yes Prep. And so I think we do a really good job of being like, they do a good job of framing why they make decisions and giving out information that I think sometimes gets lost in all the different shuffle and things that's going on. So one thing that I try to do is really just reiterate that, and also just be honest about how I feel about it. Like, I may say I don't agree with this. However, here's the realities at play. And I also am not afraid. And part of this is my privilege of being a part of the organization for now almost 5 years. I put, when it's silly, I'm going to push back. When it's something that I don't understand, or I think it's like not going to be best for my campus, not best for my students, I push back. And I'll give you an example. Recently, there was right after the pandemic, they wanted principals to record videos to go out on social media, encouraging students to come back to campus. And I don't know if you know a lot about what happened at my campus, but we had a lot of cases right before
Mhm.
to the point where right before we were to come back, right before the Friday before we got on break, we only had about 20 kids in the building, because that was the number of kids that were allowed to come. And, we had teachers, but, the students were just very limited. And I said, I just think that's tone deaf to say that. And I'm not putting this video out there that, like, because it just doesn't make sense for me to have sent all these kids home out of, extreme caution, but then you want me to encourage them to come back. And I get that, and I understand why you want them to come back, because I do think that there are some kids that need to come back to school. Let me be very clear. And I think the message was well intentioned, but it just doesn't fit the context. And as a leader, sometimes you got to know your situation, you got to know your values, and you got to know what you stand for, and you got to lean on that. And it's a risk involved, and I didn't know what they were going to say, but I also am proud to work for this organization, because I believe that when you can speak up. And I think sometimes people are hesitant to do so, but that's just not who I am. And I made that very clear when I joined the organization, and I continue to lean into that every single day.
So when you kind of said, "Hey, I'm not going to do that," was it like, "Hey, we completely understand. You know the best of your school," or was it like, "Hey, we really need you to do this. Think
Nah,
twice
it
again"?
was definitely, hey, like I told my manager, she was like, that makes great content. That's very good context that we were missing. And thank you for sharing that. And she took it to, her manager, and then then there was a statement, but there was never this, oh, you got to do this. And I think sometimes in education we read stuff as a mandate. we in our minds, we read the email, we read the thing, and we're like, oh man. And I'm just not that type. I'm gonna ask questions. I'm like, and I'm gonna circle what I think is not right, and I'm gonna say, hey, I got a question about this because this just didn't sit well with me. I think we have to be more adamant about doing that in our own leadership, particularly as we try to work with an organization that's changing in a lot of different ways, growing in a lot of different ways. And so for me, I'm just gonna always, if I have a question, I'm gonna ask it. And if it doesn't sit right with me, I'm gonna go with my instincts, and also be open to the other person's perspective. Not gonna just sit there and think that I know it all or that I have the full context, but I am gonna name how it lands with me, or what I think it represents for my school community, for my campus, for my teachers.
Yeah, I think, one quality that stood out from, what not only your former but current staff members talk about is your authentic leadership. And I think,
Mhm.
for example, our mutual colleague Byron, when I think it was like a couple weeks in, and I don't think he had even met you other than maybe his interview. And he said, "Man, Jamie Downs is going to be a really good leader." And I was like, "How do you know that?" And he said, "Well, he sent out this email, and at the bottom of the email, I think he said like, 'This effing sucks' or something like that." And he's like, "I know that's what we're all thinking. And what I want in a leader, especially my school leader, is someone who is going to speak what he actually or she actually is thinking rather than, a form email that is sent out every week or whatever."
Yeah, we had to send the email, and it's part of, like, you just have to trust that you've hired the right people, that you are gonna consistently show up and do what's necessary. But I wasn't gonna send an email out that was gonna make coming to school during COVID seem sexy, because it's not. And every morning I wake up and I'm like, gosh, I got to get back out here. I got to put on this mask, and I got to go out here, and I got to, lead these people. And it would be stupid of me to try to sell them this dream that this is going to be like the best thing ever, because it's not. And I don't think doctors feel that way when they go to work. I don't think nurses feel that way when they go to work. They're doing a duty that is necessary, but it's not fun, and it's not romantic, and it's not, maybe some would say it's heroic, but I think that you also have to understand that these are people's lives and they're sacrificing it. And I wanted them to know we're in it together. Like, if I could say we online for the rest of the year, trust and believe, I would check that box
Mhm.
without a heartbeat, in a heartbeat. But that's just not the reality that we live in. And so I just think as a leader, you have to say, you have to let people know that you understand where they're coming from. They want to know how you feel. They want to know, they want to understand, get it, that you get their perspective. And it would just be completely tone deaf and, stupid of me to sit there and say, oh yeah, we're charged up about coming back to school on Monday. Cases are increasing in the city.
Mhm.
I'm not doing that. That's not who I am. But, I also recognize that this is our duty. And so we're going to be in this together, and we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, it's like when everyone gets that alert, it's like, well, everyone got the alert, so that's the elephant in the room, and we have to address it. We can't
Yeah.
pretend like cases aren't rising. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you mentioned like trusting the team that you hired and the teachers that you hired choosing you to work for. So I got a question last week where it was asking for just like one non-negotiable you look for in your staff. So when you're hiring, what's the thing that pops out to you of saying, "Hey, this is going to be the right fit for us"?
Growth mindset. Do you have a growth mindset? Can you look at a situation and see the opportunities? Can you realize that you don't know it all, and that there is always a way in which you can get better? There's always a way in which you can, push forward. Um, I would also say resilience. This work is hard. And can you problem solve? Like, I think that very well in the classroom, people aren't gonna always give you the answer. People are not gonna always have the answer. People aren't even always gonna know you have a problem. And you have to be able to, like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. Well, that don't work, I'm gonna try this. Well, I'm gonna go find this person. They don't talk to me, I'm gonna talk to this person. How are you going to push yourself to be solutions oriented, push yourself to be resilient, and push yourself to really have a growth mindset about our kids, about this work, about our school, about me as a leader, about yourself? I mean, there's just so many different things, and that's really, really big to me, because if you can't see that, because this work is, I mean, it is, our work is impossible, but we have to work like it's possible. And that is very, very challenging. And if you don't understand that mindset, when you walk into a school like mine, you're going to get eaten alive. And I think that, that to me is important because our kids don't deserve that. Our community doesn't deserve that. They need people who see the possibilities.
Yeah, I think what I've heard most is like, a teacher who may come in with less experience or may struggle. The mindset is, you can shape and you can work with that teacher
Right.
over the long haul, as long as that mindset's clear, for sure.
Yes.
What is something about leadership that maybe teachers don't know, or normal staff don't know? For example, a lot of people talk about leadership being lonely sometimes, especially
Yeah.
when you have to roll out initiatives and you're sitting at home thinking, how do I best roll it out? And there's going to be pushback, and it's not going to be happy, but you still have to do it. And you have to figure out the best way by yourself.
I think people think principals sit on this throne and they are like, we're going to do this. This is my thing. I'm passionate about this, where we're going to go. And what they don't understand is that I work for them. The bread and butter of what we do on a campus is driven through my teachers. And I am accountable to them and the work that they do. I look good when they look good. We grow as a campus when they're able to grow as professionals. And I think too many times we don't see the connection there. And as a leader, I want my staff, I want anybody under my jurisdiction to understand that we are in this together. And my job is to make you look good. My job is to help you grow. And I think that, that gets lost a lot of times when you're talking about, non-negotiables, or, you got to have this, or you got to have expectations and things like that. And I think for me, it's all about just being like, I start the year telling my staff that. I start the year being very transparent that, hey, we're going to go on this ride together. And my job is to make sure we get there, and I'm going to support you, get you the resources, hold you accountable, push you when you don't feel like it, and I want you to push me. It's a two-way street. I've grown so much from feedback that I've gotten from my teachers, feedback that I've gotten from my people that I directly manage, that like are able to, when you create this environment where feedback is this two-way street, you get so many cues that let you grow. But also as a leader, it lets you know this work is not about me. It's not about my comfort. It's not about what makes me feel good. Honestly, it's not about what makes me look good. It's about, hey, what do I need to do? Who do I need to be to get the best out of this group of people? And that's humbling at times. Sorry, my phone is, but that's humbling at times. And that is, it's also just it's hard because you got to do personal work every day. I got to check my attitude. I got to check my privilege. I got to understand my perspective is limited, because sometimes I'll see stuff, and especially because I think sometimes, especially when maybe I was a quasi successful teacher, I'm like, oh, just do this. Oh, man, just do that. That's not an issue. But you can't just be like that. I have to sit down with people and have conversations about stuff that in my mind is just like so black and white, but you have to understand their perspective. You have to make sure people feel seen. You have to make sure people feel heard. There's this book called Radical Candor, and the whole first chapter of the book just talks about the people work that goes into leadership. And many times as leaders, we're like, man, I don't want to deal with these people's emotions. I don't want to deal with, their mindsets and stuff like that. That's not my job. But actually, as a leader, that is 100% your job. That's actually why they pay you more than everybody else, because you need to get these people to do the work. You don't need to do it. You need to deal with all the things that need to be dealt with so that this work can be done. And that is hard for a leader to understand. And I still struggle with that from time to time, because it's never about me and my comfort. It's about what do I need to do in order to get the outcome, from this group of people.
Yeah, I think there's a huge adjustment between going from, like you said, a teacher where, hey, I have control over my classroom. If I fail, it's on me. If I succeed, it's on me. But then I can't even do the work and micromanage people. I have to ultimately trust that they're going to roll out and, believe in me and align with me. So what was like first year school leader Jamie Downs versus now?
So, man, listen, first year school leader Jamie Downs was a hot mess. I think back to that time, man, and I was so young and so like eyes wide open, and I started the campus, I founded the campus. So like everything that needed to happen, every person in the building, I hired. Every system thing went through me, and I was able to say, yep, this works, this fits what I want, this is what it is. But I don't think I really understood the implications of that. Not only as when you got a first year campus, I started Yes Prep Eisenhower. It was like 12 of us. That was, man, honeymoon. Everybody loved everybody. Communication, you could just yell out the door, hey, I need this, or, really quick, everybody gets the support. Then the next year, we doubled in size. And man, honestly, year 2 was my hardest. Professionally, I would say up until this year, that was my hardest year because it's no longer this paradise. Communication, you actually need communication structures. You need there to be communication amongst other people. At that time, we were so small, everybody, you could just come grab me, say, hey, Mr. Downs, I think about this, or hey, let's pull it together real quick. Let's just meet in the hallway and have this meeting and talk about this. And those things don't last, and I think for me, that was a really like growing and the campus growing and my leadership needing to evolve very quickly. New like looking at systems, thinking about, my Myers-Briggs is ENTP, so I'm very big picture, very like visionary. Details stress me out. I've learned to be a better planner, but even to this day, I tell people all the time, if you're a planner, you're not gonna think I'm a good planner because I'm a planner for me. And I like a little bit, about 15 or 20% improv in everything I do, just because I need flexibility. So, but learning that that's not actually how some people work best. That's not actually what some people need to be successful, and having to shift that in my own leadership. The authentic leadership that you see today, that is out of struggles. Man, I remember several situations where I was trying to be this idea of a principal that I thought I should be, and how when I wasn't living into my own authenticity, it was clashing. Staff members were dissatisfied. My second year, they roasted me. This is back when we used to do the staff survey and used to get the things. And like, I think back on that time now, and I just think about those individuals and how I wasn't even sure of my own values and who I was as a leader, and how that may have tainted their experience in education, may have tainted their experience at Yes Prep. And I mean, I'm grateful for them now because I've grown from that. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't all wrong, but there are definitely things I would do differently if I sit back and look at that. And I think you kind of just got to grow, and you got to take every setback, every mistake as a learning opportunity. And that's really, really what I've learned. And I've learned the value of creating systems. I've learned the value of over communicating. I've learned the value of being, holding others accountable, clearly holding others accountable, and not just assuming that things are going, having direct conversations, sitting in awkwardness. All of that, you learn through experience. That's not necessarily something a textbook or a training is going to give to you.
And then just when you think you've got all those qualities, the pandemic hits, and that's a
woo. And they stretch you, right? And they make all of those things. You compound all of that. Never in a million years would I think I would have to go to a staff member and let them know that they tested positive for COVID-19 and it could have potentially been exposed at my campus. Never in 1,000 years would I have imagined that I would have to call families, literally get home in the evening after all the stuff on campus. Hey, just want to let you know your student should not come back to school tomorrow because, X, Y, and Z, calling staff members because, they've tested positive and now their parents are in the ICU, just work that goes far beyond the scope of what happens in the school. But that's what leadership is. And, I can't complain about it because it's what I asked for. It's the job I signed up for, but it's definitely tough. And I can only imagine what this next semester holds.
Yeah. So you founded Yes Prep Eisenhower, and then just talk us through your transition to Yes Prep Southside, as well as, the big question, which is, what was that transition like for you as a leader? Since I know Yes Prep Southside has its unique qualities as well as its, unique areas of growth as well.
Yeah, so founding Yes Prep Eisenhower was probably professionally one of the best experiences because like I said, I just grew so much over that time. Being there in Aldine, I came from an ISD background. So I started my teaching career in HISD. I was a Teach for America Corps member at Fondren Middle School, eventually went on to become an assistant principal at Sharpstown High School. And I did that for almost 4 years. Then I came to Yes Prep. So one of the things that made me a good candidate for the Eisenhower partnership was that I've worked in ISD before.
That's
And
right.
so being a principal that is working directly with another principal, I had an understanding of the work that they were doing because of my experience in ISD, which also, allowed me to, gave me some kind of a perspective that looked at the best of both worlds, because I was able to bring some of the elements of ISD. Yes Prep Eisenhower was the first one-to-one campus at Yes Prep. That was something that I brought over because we did that at Sharpstown, and I saw the impact that that had on kids. All of my initial leaders were external folk who came from either through my relationships in HISD or just people I knew through TFA and things like that, but they were not Yes Prep. Because of the different work that we were going to be doing there within the partnership. But to be able to grow that out, and I loved my time at Eisenhower. The students, in my opinion, got the best of both worlds because they got the Yes Prep curriculum, but they also got exposed to so much of the enrichment and opportunities that that happens, within Aldine and within the Aldine district, because they have a ton of student opportunities. Now, as a leader, you got to understand that co-leading a school is like having a roommate. And I don't know if you have a roommate, but there's some great things about having a roommate, and there's some not so great things about having a roommate, right? And eventually, over time, those not so, personally, I kind of outgrew the not so great things, right? So in my mind, honestly, if I reflect back on that time, I was going to finish out my time at Yes Prep Eisenhower, let my graduating class go on and do great things, and then I was going to, start thinking about what was next for me. But an opportunity at Yes Prep Southside came up. And I think about the narrative that has been created about Yes Prep Southside at Yes Prep, with one being has the largest percentage of African American students. The struggles, when I came on board, I was the fourth principal in 5 years. Continual staff. My last year was the first year that the entire, we don't have APs at Yes Prep, we have directors, but that was the first year that the directors team had all stayed from the first year to the next year. That was the first time that it happened in Yes Prep Southside history. So there was just a lot of missteps that the organization made, and they admit to that, in terms of trying to grow too fast, trying to do too much, and also thinking that you can take a model that works in one community and simply just drop it in another community and make it happen. And I think for me, what I've learned over these past couple of years, and particularly during this pandemic, is that every community is different, and every community has different needs. And if you're going to go into Sunnyside, if you're going to go into the south side of Houston, that is a community that's rich in tradition, rich in relationships, rich in, they want to be able to pick up the phone and call you and say, Mr. Downs, I don't like the way this looks, or, hey, I want to talk to you about that. And that is very different from how any other Yes Prep schools run, for better or for worse, right? That whatever in their communities they work. But in this community, it's very different. And I don't think that, we've had the time or even been trained as leaders to know what it takes to come into a community and really start to enact change. What the people of my community want is a community center. The school is, when they think about their experience at school, they think about the Yates, they think about the Worthings, they think about, the school was their life. They had great enrichment programs that were they still talk about the times when they were in the band and when they were on the football team and when they played basketball and all those things. Like that is, if you go into the local community, you go to the stores, you go whatever, that tradition is still rich there. And so you kind of have to shift your model of leadership. And for me, I've had to really, the way that I was, growing up in my leadership, particularly as a principal at Yes Prep, was just very different. I didn't live in Aldine. I lived about 45 minutes away. So I came in, came out. Whereas now they want to see you. They want you to be there. They want you to be a part of that. And that's been a really, really challenging. But then also, I think about the mindset of, even in Yes Prep, when folks talk about Southside, there's always this tone. And I can't really describe it, but it's always been like this, like black sheep, if you will. the school that can't get right, the school that, is always on the struggle bus. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that that was in reference to Black children, Black staff. And I did not like that that was almost, in a lot of ways, almost like expected. And so when I took this job, I took it because I wanted to change that narrative. And
Mhm.
I don't, and I, and I'm committed to seeing that through, because I think that, just like every other community deserves an excellent school, the students of Sunnyside deserve an excellent school. And it may look very different from every other Yes Prep. And that's part of my job, is, doing the work to vocalize that and let the people know that, hey, this isn't going to work here, but that's work and it has to be done. And you have to put yourself out there in the community, and you have to, push and push, to change the status quo. And and it's going to be messy. And that's kind of the work that we're in right now. And it's not going to be, you just insert Jamie Downs or next leader and change happens, right? It didn't take us 2 years to get into this mess, and it's damn sure not going to take us 2 years to get out.
Mhm.
But we have to be consistent. We have to show up regularly, and we have to do the work to get to know our community and what our community desires. And that's kind of where I am. I'm loving every minute of it. Professionally, I've grown so much. I have some awesome staff members who are super committed to my community, super committed to my kids, but it's hard work every
Yeah,
day.
I feel like you guys are like that sports team who it's a bunch of people who have been told like they couldn't make it or their school or whatever, and they
Yep,
have this family commitment community because
yep,
for the amount of, because I know, Janae and Felicia and Jalen and
yep,
all of them, and they all have this like chip on their shoulder, which
yep,
pushes them to continue to stay there and stay committed of saying, I remember 2 or 3 years ago at kickoff when Southside was called out and all this stuff. And I remember that of saying, you've put this target on our back. You've made us, the somewhat laughing stock or whatever, but you haven't even come and visited. You don't know what it's like. So it's awesome to see you take over. It's awesome to see, people that are close to me choose to move over there and get involved in the project. And then it's also awesome to see the results too. Cause
yeah.
I mean, just within a couple years, Southside has grown so much, and I think it's got a great future for sure.
Oh, 100%. And that is, and I don't, and I want to, I want to say, I don't want to take credit for the growth. There's been a lot of great leaders that have come through Southside, a lot of great people like Janae, like Byron, like Jalen, like all the people. I mean, I have 5 people that are in,
Mhm.
you're in SPA.
Right. Right. Yeah.
5 people on my campus that are in SPA that are pursuing that leadership. And I tell them all the time, I want you guys to win. I want you to get the best experience out of this, because you're the future leaders of this organization or in education, period. So I want you to get the most out of this experience, because they're in like the perfect position, because it's okay for them to mess up. They can try whatever they want to try, learn the lessons they need to learn, and do what they need to do. Because when they get in that seat, I want them to be ready for the challenges that are experiencing. So yeah, I definitely 100% agree with you. There's lots of things to be excited about at Yes Prep Southside.
So I want to talk about a topic that actually one of my good friends, Shika and Byron, are actually going to explore in some guest hosting episodes, because
Okay.
I think it's really important. And I also want to acknowledge that I have very little experience, and I wanted my listeners to be able to hear a different perspective, and
Mhm.
that's just the Black student experience,
Yeah.
especially at Yes Prep. I think what I've seen in different environments that I've been, both at Fifth Ward and at Northwest, are, for example, Fifth Ward. There's a large Black population in the community. When you look at the school, very, very few. And what we've seen over time is those students and those families do not feel like they can share and celebrate their identity. And so what's happening is they feel uncomfortable over time. They decide, why don't I go to the public school down the street? Or why don't I move to a school like Yes Prep Southside?
Yeah.
So I guess it's a heavy question, but I'm sure it's a question that you've thought of quite a bit. And that's, what do you think us as a district could be doing for those students? And I don't know, just talk us through your thoughts on that area of growth for our campus, but or for our district, but also I'm sure, across a lot of districts.
So I think that people who look at Southside is like, okay, I think that our student experience maybe perhaps maybe better, but it's not great. In that same vein,
Mhm.
because our we have the same problem that the district has. Black students are leaving. And Southside was at one point, disproportionately, we're in a zip code that's 98% African American, and our student population does not represent that demographic right now because our Black students are like, nah, this is just not, we don't value the same things. And what I've learned from my experience is one, that Yes Prep has built its identity around this college going culture. We are a college prep academy. We prepare students to enter and to graduate from four-year colleges or universities. And we believe that's what's best for your child. And in some communities, people saying that, let me just be honest, white people saying that means a lot. And if you're a family of an immigrant and you came to America with this idea of chasing the American dream, you know that that's what you value, you know that's what you want, you go for it. And like, hey, whatever these white people tell you to do, I want you to do it, and don't you give them no lip. You're gonna graduate and you're gonna go to college and you're gonna be successful. And that works for some people. When you come into the Black community, there are just so many other different dynamics at play. First of all, there's trust issues, because we already know that the white community has not served our best interests. And like it or not, Yes Prep in the Black community, Yes Prep is a white organization. And in a lot of ways, it is an organization that's very much like TFA, very much like KIPP, very much like these organizations that's really built on corporate culture, which we all know can be linked directly back to white supremacy culture. Mm-hmm. And so there are lots of things that come up for our students that we don't even think about, because in our minds, college is the goal. Everything else you got around that doesn't really matter, because you need to go to college. And trying to force feed that down someone's throat without the proper education, without acknowledging all the other things that exist within that, like in between that and college, right? And also understanding that our community wants school to be an experience which kids love. They want enrichment opportunities. They want opportunities to, develop in arts, develop in athletics, develop in all these different areas that Yes Prep just simply does not prioritize. And I think that, when you're comparing apples to apples, right? When you look at a school that's failing, you're like, okay, this would be a good fit for my kid. I know they're going to learn something. I know they're going to go here and they're going to push them academically, but are they really developing my child? And in many ways, particularly for Black kids, I don't think we have. I think what we've actually been doing is sending a message that you don't belong. You don't fit in. Yeah, that's cute and all, but we don't value that. You need to value this. And when you have that rub all the time, people are going to choose other options that fit better with what they desire, what they want. And I think that we're doing the work. Don't get me wrong. Yes Prep has grown so much as an organization. But even what I've realized, especially in this pandemic, where I've been doing home visits, I've been talking more directly with community members, talking more directly with families in ways that I have not been able to in the past. It's like they expect more from us that may look a little bit different. They want to have input. There are things that they value that we just don't offer. And they're like, yeah, that may be important to you, but I want my kid to be on in the band. I want my kid to have these distractions. Not distractions. I want my kids to have distractions from all the other things that's going on in their neighborhood, where they can spend time at school and do the things that they need to be focused on, the positive energy that I want them to have. And that's pushed Black students away, not to mention our discipline structures, which, and that's every district, that are rooted in, our archetype for what a good student is and how we think a student should dress. I'm actually, us taking away the dress code this year has been the biggest thing off my back. And it's honestly decreased the amount of stress that we have on, like, imagine coming to school. Who knows what our kids go through at home, right? Imagine coming to school, you've done everything in power. You maybe you couldn't get a ride, you missed the bus, you had to wake up your brothers and sisters, you had to do all this to get to school, just for somebody to be like, man, that's not a Yes Prep shirt. Go to ISS. That's not cool. Or like, not even good morning, not even a welcome, And so I think that there's just work that we have to do to value, like, to make sure our values align with our community, make sure that we're able to bring in the things that our community wants. And I think sometimes that we get so caught up in this push for college that we forget about all the other things that our communities want to especially for Black students, that gets lost. And when you're one of few, I know that experience, and I wasn't, for our students, it may be a little bit more like, particularly at some of the other Yes Prep campuses, they're one Black student to a bunch of Hispanic students, but that's very similar to, I grew up in the rural South where, I was one of few Black students in a white school where, it's like, I can't bring my full self. I'm just going to, I'm going to do what I need to do that's going to get me the less amount of attention. I don't want y'all bothering me. I don't want y'all asking me what's wrong. I'm gonna come here and I'm doing more. And that's the opposite of how we want kids to feel in school. And so we just have to do a better job of making it happen.
Yeah. Do you feel like in a centralized district like Yes, oftentimes initiatives or systems are coming down and then you yourself are adapting it to the school? Or do you think there's been an initiative or more efforts now to say, hey, we got to make different plans that adapt to different schools based on their culture and based on their community?
I think we're getting there. We got a lot of unlearning to do, to be honest. Systems have been created, and this is not just a Yes Prep problem. Let me be very clear. This is, when you look at some of the districts that we would deem to be the most successful in the charter world, in the ISD world, or, traditional school model, these are issues that they're all dealing with. And I was talking to a candidate the other day. And so I'm a lead principal and I have to interview principal candidates for the residency. And she was like, one of the things that drew me to Yes Prep is that, they made this statement that we're an anti-racist organization. And I said, let me pause you there. First of all, I think that that's great that you heard that. And I think that we're making strides in every way that we can be to be an anti-racist organization. I want to be very clear. Yes Prep is an aspiring anti-racist organization. And that is very different work than working for an anti-racist organization. And I think that for what that looks like on the inside is that in order for us to grow as an organization to be anti-racist, we have to admit that we're racist. And that's a very tough conversation for some people to have right now. And we have to do our part. And this is where, and I tell my teachers this, I tell my leaders this, I have to embody this because it sucks sometimes because you got to be the person that speaks up. The only way that conversation continues is if we continue it. We can't expect people who that's not their lived experience or who are going to make decisions and with the best of intentions, but sometimes have blinders to things to know. It's going to take a collective effort and we can't get tired of bringing it up. We can't get tired of always circling back. And it's going to be kind of awkward and icky for a while. But out of that conflict, it's going to become this great diamond of possibilities if we get it right. I think the jury's still out if we're going to, but based on the conversations I've had with district leaders and just in their own pursuit of equity and things like that, and that's one thing I love about this organization is that they're constant pursuit of that. I think that we're going to make some strides, but it's going to take diverse opinions, people sharing how they feel, starting at the campus level to really see that change that we want to see.
Yeah, I think the question is, are people or is the organization willing to put in the work that will last decades to fix all these things? And
you can't put it just on. And so what I tell people all the time is you can't just put it on the organization. You are Yes Prep. We are Yes Prep, right? Sometimes we like to think of those things as like two different entities. I'm me and I am who I am, right? But you work for Yes Prep. Yes Prep going to change if you push it to change. It's not going to change by osmosis or just because this stuff is out there, right? Maybe it will gradually lean towards it. But if you really want to see the change that's necessary, we all have to take the collective effort. We can't get tired of, pursuing this quest for equity.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. And also thank you for being on and answering these questions. I appreciate it.
No
I'd also like you just in these last couple of minutes to plug your own podcast as well as your mentorship program as well.
Yeah. So, years ago, I'll start with my mentorship program. So this is something that we're going to be launching this semester at Yes Prep Southside. So Byron, one of your good friends, and I, and along with some other administrators, we're launching the King's Compass, which is a mentorship program for some of our young males on campus. We are originally, years ago, when I had a whole bunch of free time, some friends and I started a organization where we mentor young men in a year-long we did monthly learning activities, but it was a year-long project where which culminated in a travel seminar. We took students to Nicaragua, and we took students in the second year to Belize, where in Nicaragua, we built a church on the side of a hill. We did these self-reflection, professional development activities during the day. And then we also had fun. But we took students that were not necessarily your top tier students, but kind of like your bubble, to students who were about to check out. And what we realized, those students needed when you grow up in the community, Yes Prep Southside, for example, 7.6% of the adults in this zip code have of the adults 18 to 34 have a post high school diploma, which means that there are a lot of adults that our kids come around that just they have not pursued life beyond high school. And so when we start thinking about that for our kids, knowing that that is one of the biggest contributors to building wealth and access in this country, our kids don't have a lot of adults that they can just go talk to that are just, that have been to college. And so, and what I learned as an educator was that, I'm thinking just showing up, being a Black man, my kids are going to quickly identify with me. And it don't work like that either. And so this mentorship program was an opportunity to bridge that gap for us to have real conversations. I want you to know where I've been, what's my struggle, what's my journey, so that you can identify with me, but then also for you. And so that's something that we're going to be bringing to Yes Prep Southside in the coming year. You can follow us on Instagram at the King's Compass. But also, in addition to that, I'm also working with some great leaders who I actually did the core with back in 2007. And they are, that's my phone ringing in the back. I'm sorry. It's we're getting ready to go back to work. That's the Yes Prep phone. But I have some friends who I did the core with back in the day, and we started the Lunch Detention podcast. They've all gone off to do different things. One of which is Casey Brock. She works for KIP. And then my friend Vincent, he is Vincent Harris. He's a college professor actually out in California. And he manages a program that works specifically with minority male students, to help them persist through college. And so all of us come together each day, talk about our experience in education, but also just really kind of just push each other's thoughts on different things. And I kind of share the K through 12 experience. Casey kind of talks about it from a college access, and Vincent kind of talks about it from a higher ed perspective. But that's awesome. You can follow us on Instagram at the Lunch Detention podcast. But you can also follow us on any of the places where you get podcasts, the Lunch Detention podcast. But also, if you're just interested in following me, my social media is at The Principal Life. And you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all of that, where I'll be sharing all this content. So thank you again for this time today, man. Hopefully, your listeners learned something from our conversation today.
Absolutely. You're actually the first principal on, hopefully on a series, but no better way to start with you. And I think, you give a great perspective on what it takes to be an effective leader. And then also, kind of what you look for in teachers as well as your unique experience going from two different schools and then dealing with this whole pandemic. So I really do appreciate you coming on. That's all I have. Yeah. I'll keep you updated on. Yeah, I'll keep you updated on everything. Don't jump into the work too early. Give yourself. Enjoy this New Year's Eve.
You heard that, phone. It's gonna happen. But thank you, man. Thank you for creating this opportunity. You're doing great work. Love the podcast. Keep the information coming. People need it. Just thank you again, man. Appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you. I look forward to keeping in touch and seeing the great work that or the bad things that Byron and all of them have are critical of you. No, I'm just
hey, I'm here for it all, man. So thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Jamie.
All right, bye.